Вітаємо вас, дорогі глядачі, на українській телемережі «Контакт». Я ваша ведуча Марта CZURYLOWICZ. Всіх, що святкують за новим календарем, вітаємо зі святами. Серед різноманітних передріздвяних вистав міста Торонто є мистецька виставка «12 ялинок» в Gardner Museum в самому центрі міста. Одна з найкращих ялинок є Ukrainian Christmas Spider Tree, про яку нам розкаже Дар'я Дяковська, представниця Українського музею Канади. В передачі Untitled Таня Стех представить англомовний варіант розповіді про трагічну постать класика української хорової музики Артема Веделя. Ведучий нашої постійної рубрики Stay Ukrainian My Friends Рон Когут відвідає щорічне свято Joy of Lights при парохії святого Дмитрія Витобиков. Після перерви новини з України.
Від імені Українського канадського дому опіки з тим радісним святом Рождества Христового хочемо побажати всім управителям цього дому, працівникам, нашим родинам, українським установам, нашому духовенству, всім українцям по цілому світі. І маємо надію, що новонароджене Боже дитятко принесе мир і спокій по всьому світі, а особливо в нашій рідній батьківщині. Дай Боже щасливого дня і смачної куті, і всього найкращого Христос ще рождає.
В імені святого Дмитря резиденції на Ля-Роуз бажаю всім веселих свят і щасливого Нового року. Христос ще рождає. Ісус горів'я, Марія му мати, тут ангели чудяться, рожденого бояться, а він стоїть трясеться.
We face in Syria and Iraq has layers of complexity and has geopolitical significance. Currently, our allied war effort faces new and additional challenges posed by a significant ramping up of involvement by Kremlin President Putin. As we've learned in recent years, Putin's stated intent and actions are often diametrically opposite. Instead of bombing Daesh, the vast majority of bombs unleashed by the Russian military land on anti-Assad forces and civilian neighborhoods. The Kremlin, while expanding existing and adding to the number of Russian naval and air force military bases in Syria, continues to test NATO partner Turkey's resolve. Problematically, while for the most part avoiding bombing Daesh, the FSB, Russia's intelligence services, has been funneling hundreds of fighters from Dagestan into Daesh's ranks. A recent investigation by Novaya Gazeta, one of the few independent newspapers left in Russia, based on extensive field work by Elena Milashina, has concluded that, and I quote, Russia's special services have controlled the flow of jihadists into Syria. Russia has now become the third biggest source country for foreign Daesh fighters. The FSB's establishment of a green corridor is meticulously documented by Novaya Gazeta, from FSB recruiters to supply of travel documents, funnels potential terrorists who, instead of causing trouble and blowing things up in Russia, militarily engage NATO forces. This has, in the Kremlin's view, the added benefit of making impossible a Qatari gas pipeline through Syria and Turkey to Europe, so as not to challenge Russia's gas chokehold of Western European gas markets.
Clearly, the Kremlin has aggressive revisionist geopolitical objectives in Europe and Eurasia and wishes to regain Russia's past sphere of influence over the past Soviet space. I also encourage this committee to show principled leadership by advocating that the international community should be resolute and unwavering in its determination to eradicate all forms of terrorism and prevent senseless violence and terrible human suffering.
As we celebrate the Christmas season and welcome in the new year, our thoughts and prayers are with our brothers and sisters in Ukraine as they defend themselves and their country against Russia's invasion, killings, human rights violations, and terrorism. Throughout this horrific period of revolution and war, under the leadership of the Ukrainian Canadian Congress, the Ukrainian World Congress, and our member organizations, our community has played a pivotal role in ensuring international support for Ukraine. Our member organizations continue to provide ongoing humanitarian aid to Ukraine through Ukrainian Canadian Congress's Ukraine Appeal, while our Ottawa Bureau continues to inform and educate Canadian policymakers. With the recent change in Canada's federal government, including more than 50% new members of Parliament, many of whom are not fully aware of the situation in Ukraine, we have a lot of work ahead of us to inform them of what Ukraine needs most and ensure Canada's continued leadership and support to the people of Ukraine. And for that, we need your support. In 2016, the Ukrainian Canadian community will be celebrating two significant milestones: the 125th anniversary of the first immigrants from Ukraine, and 75 years of the Ukrainian Canadian Congress being the voice of and leading a strong, united, and vibrant Ukrainian Canadian community. There are many initiatives underway to celebrate these anniversaries, and our goal is to create awareness of our contribution as a founding people of Canada, build pride and belonging, and inform Canadians about issues that are important to our community. With your generous support of our work, we will continue to help the people of Ukraine achieve their rightful destiny, as well as build a strong Ukrainian Canadian community in Canada for generations to come. On behalf of the Ukrainian Canadian Congress and my family, Adriana, Roman, Danilo, Larissa, and Ilana, I extend my very best wishes for a Merry Christmas and a happy, healthy, and prosperous New Year. Христос рождається, Christ is born. Веселих свят, Happy Holidays.
Христос рождається, славім Його. On behalf of all of the clergy, religious and lay faithful of the Eparchy of New Westminster, I want to wish you all of God's blessings on this Christmas season and throughout the new year. Нехай новонароджений Ісус принесе мир і спокій у кожну вашу оселю та дарує вам Боже благословення на увесь наступний рік. Христос рождається, славім Його!
Серед різноманітних передріздвяних вистав міста Торонто є мистецька виставка «12 ялинок» в Gardner Museum в самому центрі міста. Одна з найкращих ялинок є Ukrainian Christmas Spider Tree, про яку нам розкаже Дар'я Дяковська, представниця Українського музею Канади.
Ми сьогодні вечором знаходимося в музеї Gardner, зараз через дорогу від Королівського музею. Тут переважно виставляють порцелян із цілого світу. Сьогодні вечором відкривають виставку 12 ялинок, які різні організації, люди приготовили.
So we went out for a big call and it was not easy. So I had a committee and I had to pick and it was really hard. And there are some that I really wanted to do, but I thought it wasn't right to have, you know, I love that Hunter's in it, that Jane Waters is in it, that Michael Adamson, that you know Justin Broadbent's in it. So I didn't want to have, you could have all top tier, but I think and I'm not saying that they're not all amazing because they are, but I really wanted a spectrum of painters and graphic and sculpture and photographers and guilds and set designers. So I think that every year, this is the first year of this idea, that hopefully every year that I'll pass on that, let's do a spectrum and let's give, the youngest person in the room and somebody as the most qualified.
Нам хтось сказав, що є така можливість, і ми вдалися своїм проєктом, і слава Богу, нас вибрали. Це для нас було трошки несподіванка, бо це перший раз взагалі, що Український музей відважився на такий проєкт. І ми розпочали роздумувати, як це має виглядати. Тому що при музеєві немає професійного дизайнера, ми вдалися до своїх добровольців. Між ними є митці, є люди, які пишуть писанки, є люди, які вміють шити і так далі.
The ornaments represent spiders of various sizes. They're made from real eggs. These are goose eggs, hen eggs, and pullet eggs. They're all hand-painted with gold and silver, and the bodies are made from various crystals, Swarovski crystals, and other crystals, all handmade, painted by our members, and each one is absolutely unique. The webbing was made very specifically with some threads that were dipped in gold and silver and sparkled up by us, as well as the star.
Кольори, які вибрані, є золоті і сріблі, які в касті дитячій, на котрому базується та ціла ідея. Дуже бідна сім'я не може собі дозволити на те, щоб перекрасити свою ялинку. Виходять на літургію, коли повертаються, ціла ялинка сяє із золотих і срібних павутинях. І ми хотіли цю ідею передати нашою ялинкою.
The base of the tree, you can see the textiles from the museum. The Ukrainian Museum of Canada, Ontario branch, is a textile museum. And so it was suggested by the curator that we highlight some of our heritage by building a base for the tree out of some of our textiles. The museum is a branch of the Ukrainian Museum of Canada, and we are about 75 years old now. We have a lovely base of members, many volunteers, and as you can see, many of them extremely creative. We have our museum at 620 Spadina in Toronto, and we regularly hold exhibits and workshops, and very proud of all of the artifacts that we've collected and that have been donated and entrusted to our care over many decades.
При звуках традиційної колядки у затишку рідного середовища в пенсіоні імені Івана Франка думками линемо до давніших часів нашого дитинства. В цей час святочний, різдвяний засилаємо щирі побажання українській громаді міста Торонто і околиць і по всьому світу. Особливо вітаємо наших братів і сестер в далекій Україні. Хай новонароджене дитятко принесе нам спокій, мир і добробут, щоб ми всі разом зустріли щасливий Новий рік, і щоб дирекція пенсіонів імені Івана Франка приступила щасливо і успішно до будови ще одного нового дому для наших сеньорів.
А він стоїть, трясеться, оце сумно
Від директивного комітету маю велику пошану привітати всіх вас з великим християнським святом Різдвом Христовим і щасливим 2016 роком. Бажаю вам кріпкого здоров'я та доброї витривалості. Merry Christmas and Happy New Year. Joyeux de Noël and bonne année.
Звертаюся до народу і воїнів, котрі знаходяться на фронтових позиціях в Україні в цей різдвяний час. Хай Христова ласка, любов і милосердя буде серед вас. А від української діаспори низький поклін героям, котрі відстоюють українську незалежність і суверенність. Христос родився. Хай вас Бог береже.
Тиха ніч, свята ніч, ясні спєви зірниць.
В імені мешканців Українського дому святих Петра і Павла складаємо вам і вашим родинам щирі побажання, веселих свят та щасливого Нового року.
Тут ангели чудяться, рожденого бояться, а він стоїть трясеться.
Ангели співають, і ми разом з ними. Прославляймо Рождество піснями своїми. Хай Ісус маленький не минає вашу хату, а принесе вам і вашим родинам здоров'я, щастя і долю багату.
Христос рождається.
Славіте Його!
Христос рождається, славімо Його. В гарний день і в добрий час ми з Різдвом вітаємо вас із вечерю святою, голосною колядою, щоб рік новий приніс до хати щастя, радости багато. On behalf of the Board of Directors and staff at St. Vladimir Institute, I'd like to extend our warmest greetings of the holiday season. This past year, we've seen great things at the Institute, and we look forward to seeing both members and hopefully new members attending our various events and programs we have planned for the coming months. Thank you to our members, supporters, and volunteers for your loyal dedication to the Institute. Your generosity allows us to promote and foster our Ukrainian heritage and culture in our community. Merry Christmas and all the best for 2016. Veselak vam Svyat.
Шановні пані і панове, від імені українського ресторану «Золотий Лев» хочу привітати всіх вас з Різдвом Христовим і з Новим роком, побажати кожному з вас щастя, здоров'я, миру і злагоди у кожен дім. Христос рождається!
Фірма Чолкан і Степчук, яка виконує аудиторські, бухгалтерські і податкові послуги. Бажаємо вам всім радісного Різдва і щасливого Нового року.
Христос рождається.
Славіте Його!
Cholkan and Stepchuk Chartered Accountants wish everyone happy holidays and all the best.
Eye on Culture is sponsored by the Ignatowicz Family Foundation.
Eye on Culture. Artem Vedel was the third co-founder of the classical tradition of Ukrainian choral music, and unlike his countrymen, Maxim Berezovsky and Dmytro Bortnyansky, he did not wish to build his professional career outside of Ukraine. Indeed, when the Kyiv Metropolitan Samuil Myslavsky sent him to Moscow to be a choral conductor for the city's governor-general, Vedel very soon asked to be released from that position, and he returned to his native Kyiv. Forgoing his personal interests and curtailing his ability to achieve fame and fortune, he chose to go about his musical undertakings exclusively in his homeland. Vedel's attachment to Ukraine was also manifested in his strong dedication to his native musical tradition, first and foremost to the Kievan School of Choral Music. As opposed to Berezovsky and Bortnyansky, Vedel did not base his work on Italian music, and instead sought to modernize the tradition of 17th and 18th century Ukrainian choral concertos. Vedel's cultural and territorial patriotism and untimely death caused later scholars to hypothesize that he was also active politically, undertaking some secret anti-imperial struggle, which they surmised might have led to his imprisonment and tragic demise. Today we see that Vedel had pursued no political agenda. The tragedy of his fate points rather to the fundamental unculturedness and profound inhumanity of the Russian imperial system. This system treated with deep suspicion that which was unusual or fell outside the bounds of Tsarist dictates. It tried to nip in the bud any displays of sovereign individuality. By its very nature, it denied the right of a person to freedom of thought and individuality of character. So, who was Artem Vedel, the so-called criminal, who at 32 years of age was sentenced to life imprisonment, and alongside that to eradication from the historical memory of his nation, and thus to eternal disregard? Artemy Vedelsky, Vedel's real name, was a native of Kyiv, the son of a woodcarver from the Kyiv Guild of Iconographers. We have no pictures of Vedel, but recollections state that he was a particularly handsome young man, with sparkling, soulful eyes. He had a beautiful voice and was a first-rate violinist. He was also exceptionally refined in manner and extraordinarily humble. In general, Vedel's contemporaries viewed him as a person seemingly not of this world. He drew attention for his tremendously gentle nature, his asceticism, and highly moral approach to life, and for his refusal to focus on personal or material advantage, career, or the pursuit of glory. For example, when he was already a well-known composer, the Ukrainian patriot and generous cultural philanthropist Dmytro Troshchinsky supported Vedel by giving him 300 rubles for his liturgy, an amount equivalent to several years' salary for a Tsarist functionary. Vedel gave away most of this money to the poor, and himself continued to live in a modest, ascetic manner. Vedel's most fertile period of creativity occurred during the second half of the 1790s, when he worked in Kyiv as choirmaster of the army chorus. He also moved with them to Kharkiv for some time. However, when in 1796 the Tsarist throne was taken over by Paul I, Vedel's world fell apart. The new Tsar systematically implemented limitations to personal and cultural freedoms within the Russian Empire, and in 1797 issued an order forbidding church choral concerts, as well as singing or playing music of any kind in churches. Only liturgies were excluded from the ban. This was a particular blow to culture in Ukraine, where the long-standing tradition of performing choral concertos in churches was the lifeblood of Ukrainian musical life. Devoid of a job, and with the opportunity to perform his music having been snatched from him, Vedel fell into a deep depression. Meanwhile, his reputation as an otherworldly, saintly prophet was growing. He decided to withdraw from his carnal existence and became a monk of the Kievan Caves monastery. However, disillusioned by the hypocrisy and lack of spirituality he encountered there, he abandoned monastic life. Afterward, a book was found in the Caves monastery. Written in its margins, apparently in Vedel's hand, was a prophetic note saying that Tsar Paul I murdered his mother Catherine II, and that soon he himself would be killed. The archimandrite of the Caves monastery, Yerofey Malitsky, well known for his vengeful nature, appealed to the Tsar himself to punish the free-thinking nonconformist, Vedel. The Tsar did not tarry. Vedel was declared insane, arrested, and imprisoned in the Podil district of Kyiv. in an asylum where both criminals and the insane were housed in deplorable conditions. In addition, the Tsar dictated that even if Wedel were to be cured of his illness, he was still to remain imprisoned to the end of his days, and he banned Wedel's works. Clearly, the Tsar was fearful about the notation indicating his complicity in his mother's death, and the prophecy as to his own demise. That prophecy, by the way, soon came true. Paul I was killed in 1801. Wedel had described this event while imprisoned, before a word of it had reached Kyiv. Paul's successor, Alexander I, also refused to free Wedel. Only a few days before the death of the terminally ill composer, Alexander allowed him to visit his father's home, where Wedel died in the garden while praying. He was 41 years old and had lived the last 9 years of his life in captivity. Thus, the inhumane imperial system, which included the government-controlled church, as Tsar Peter I, with the assistance of the Ukrainian Teofan Prokopovich, had already by then incorporated the church into the imperial administration, heartlessly destroyed a uniquely talented individual whose moral virtues, artistic works, and unusual abilities by their very existence became a challenge for the soulless and uncultured bureaucratic machine. In the end, however, the imperial system did not succeed in eliminating Wedel's works from Ukrainian culture, or to erase him from Ukrainian historical memory. In 1901, nearly 100 years after Wedel's death, through the efforts of Ukrainian activists in Kyiv, the first public lecture about his artistic legacy took place, during which a choir, conducted by Alexander Koshets, performed some of Wedel's compositions, for the first time in over 100 years. Koshets was one of the first scholars to research and popularize Wedel. Today, his scholarly work, which had been suspended for decades in the USSR, is continued by musicologists in independent Ukraine. The newest releases to date of Wedel's extant musical scores were recently published in Ukraine by the director of the Kyiv Chamber Choir, Mykola Hobdych, and musicologist Tatiana Husarchuk. So, as we see, the creative spirit and extraordinary individuality of Artem Wedel proved to be stronger than the crushing gears of the repressive imperial machine. Our collective responsibility, today and in the future, is to ensure that Wedel's work and memory will live on within Ukrainian cultural identity. On behalf of Dr. Marko Robert Stech, I'm Tanya Stech. See you next time on Eye on Culture.
Очима культури спонсороване фундацією родини Ігнатович.
Очима культури.
В імені Ради директорів Українська канадська фундація Тараса Шевченка в день Різдва Христового прийміть, друзі милі, оці мої з глибини душі побажання щирі. Нехай вам Бог приносить усі благодати, щоб усякає добро плило до хати, щоб здоров'я вам служило у кожній хвилині, щоб згода і любов цвіли у родині. Нехай Ісус, що народився і спочив на сіні, пошле мир, любов і ласку всій вашій родині. Христос народився.
Бог предвічний народився.
Від філії УНО Торонто Захід поздоровляємо всіх з Новим роком і Різдвом Христовим. Бажаємо всім гарних, веселих свят. Христос рождається.
Славімо Його! Ми діти роду козацького,
Sponsored by Ukrainian Credit Union. Believe it or not, it's Ron Kohut with Stay Ukrainian, my friends.
We're Cossack children of history.
Every year we light the Christmas tree. You're a great benefactor of this place, the Care Center. You sponsor this every year. You help with them. You're how's that make you feel? Good?
Very proud to be part of the community and to do something worthwhile and to help the community. This is a great organization and they need support, and I'm pleased and proud to be part of it.
It's not just here. I mean, you help the diaspora as a whole quite a bit. I mean, you're quite active in the community.
Well, the community's been good to us over the years. They've supported my family, and we feel part of the community, and being part of the community means helping and participating and supporting the community in any way you can. So we like to take part.
Jimmy, thank you very much for doing this for the community every year, and God bless. And I don't have to tell you to stay Ukrainian. You are.
Our pleasure. Thank you.
This is OREST KOBYLANSKY. Now, you're the past chairman here.
Yes, past president of the board of the directors.
And you're still on the board?
Yes, as past president.
And how's it going?
It's going great. We have a great evening tonight, as you can see. A lot of family and friends and all our residents here for the celebration of Joy of Lights.
Does this demand a great deal of your time?
Well, all board members, as you know, it's a volunteer position, and we've had a number of people that have donated 6 years of their volunteer life here at the board, and it's just been a great, over 20 years of celebration here.
And how long have you been on the board?
This will be my 7th year.
In a row?
Yes, that's correct.
So this is your first Christmas not being the president?
That would be correct.
So is it like a vacuous thing now?
No, all good.
Is it all good?
All good.
You found you had a little more free time?
No, matter of fact, my father just has been admitted here, so I've been visiting and I've been seeing all the staff doing this wonderful work here. And we've had a number of gentlemen here that have been putting all these lights on, and they've been working from 7 in the morning to 9 at night, making this place look so Christmassy. So it's just wonderful to see the staff work so hard.
This is a wonderful yearly function, and neither of us really know how many there have been. 10, 12, 4, that,
Yeah, it's approximately there, yes.
Yeah, somewhere in there.
It's
Well, it's a great function. I'll let you get back to your
Thank you very much.
schmoozing. Thank you very
Appreciate
much
it.
for
Thank you.
spending this
Thank
time
you.
with us. Знову слава Ісусу Христу, Владико.
Слава навіки, Роман.
Чи ще за Христос рождається, то є too early?
Так. Ви від 4 грудня, коли ми почали святкувати свято введення в храм Божої Матері, ми вже почали співати «Христос рождається, славіте, Христос з небес зустрічайте, Христос на землі возносітеся, оспівуйте Господеві вся земля». І від цього числа ми вже і колядуємо, і вже приготовляємо себе до зустрічі Різдва Христового. По традиції в цьому будинку для старших людей ми завжди благословляємо, вже 5-й раз я тут, цю новорічну ялинку, і також приготовляємо людей духовно, в першу чергу, до зустрічі Христового Різдва, щоб люди, правда, перебуваючи ще в пості різдвяному, але духовно вже відчували наближення сонця сходу, який є Христос і наш Спаситель.
Христос рождається.
Славити Його.
Слава Ісусу Христу.
Слава навіки.
Слава Україні.
Героям слава.
Слава Канада і stay Ukrainian, my friend.
Хай всі будуть українці в першу чергу, ті, що родилися чи в Канаді, чи в Україні, не забувають нашу культуру,
не забувають нашу традицію. І як гарно, що так чисельно сьогодні зібралося людей на зустріч, на відкриття цієї ялинки в цьому будинку, і щоб ми, так як ви кажете, завжди були українцями. Христос рождається.
Ми діти роду козацького,
Sponsored by Ukrainian Credit Union. Believe it or not, it's Ron Cahoot with Stay Ukrainian, my friends.
We're Cossack children of history.
Від імені Українського національного об'єднання «Відділ Торонто»
і Організації Українок Канади «Відділ Торонто»
і молоді Українського національного об'єднання «Відділ Торонто»
запрошуємо вас приєднуватися до наших наукових таборів, дитячих програм і вступати в ряди Українського національного об'єднання. Бажаємо вам щасливого Різдва, веселого Нового року! Христос рождається!
Славіти Його!
Із приводу свята Різдва Христового і Нового року Зенон і Дарко Мігус, власники фірми Мігус Автоворк, бажають своїм клієнтам і всій українській громаді веселих свят і щасливого Нового року. Фірма Мігус Автоворк полагоджує ремонти всіх автомобільних марок професійною і чесною обслугою. Христос народився!
Від імені Української католицької освітньої фундації бажаю українській громаді веселих свят і щасливого Нового року. Христос рождається!
Громадські оголошення «Що коли іде» спонсоровані Cardinal Funeral Homes Limited. Новий шлях – кольоровий тижневик із двомовними матеріалами.
Христос народився, славімо Його! Редакція «Нового шляху» сердечно вітає усю громаду з Новим роком і Різдвом Христовим, які надходять. І сподівається, що ви на наших сторінках у цьому році знайшли для себе багато цікавого. Обіцяємо, у нашому різдвяному випуску ви побачите багато матеріалів, які представлять для вас деяких членів нашої громади з неочікуваного боку. Покажуть вам, наскільки наша громада у Канаді багата на по-справжньому талановитих людей. Чекайте також на матеріали з України, які дадуть вам відповіді на деякі складні питання, яких не можна знайти навіть в українських газетах. Залишайтеся з новим шляхом у новому році. І на многі і благі літа.
Україномовний тижневик «Хомен України» інформує українську діаспору понад 50 років.
Газета Ukrainian Weekly – англійське слово про Україну.
Українські вісті – Canada's bi-weekly Ukrainian news. Subscribe today. Call 780-488-3693 for 3 free trial issues. Клініка Ліліани Дудки Formula Life розглядає проблеми шкіри. Ваше обличчя віддзеркалює ваше здоров'я.
Тепер маєте чудову нагоду зробити себе прекрасними перед святами.
Інститут краси та здоров'я Formula Life вже 10 років готує висококваліфікованих спеціалістів в області косметології. Програма навчання інституту детально ознайомлює своїх студентів із найновішими досягненнями сучасної косметологічної медицини.
Наші класи відкриті для вас кожного місяця. В будь-який час можете приєднатися до наших класів.
Українське національне об'єднання Канади запрошує вас на святкування Нового року в стилі мексиканської фієсти у четвер, 31 грудня о 7 годині вечора. За квитками звертайтеся за телефоном 416 253 6002. Святкування відбудеться в банкетній залі Уно Тризуб на 145 Еванс Авеню в Етобіко. Хор Веснівка заспіває літургію номер 4 Веснівка Романа Гурка на Різдвяній службі Божій 7 січня 2016 року об 11:30 ранку в церкві Святого Миколая на розі Белвудс Авеню і Квін Стріт Вест в Торонто. Хор Веснівка запрошує вас на різдвяний концерт, що відбудеться в неділю 10 січня о 3 годині пополудні в Islington United Church на 25 Burnham Thorpe Road. Хор церкви Святого Великомученика Димитрія і мюзикл Бортнянський запрошують вас на велику коляду «Коляди з Полісся» В неділю, 10 січня о 6 годині вечора в церкві на 135 Larose Avenue, Weston. Об'єднання українців Закерзоння та Лемківська фундація запрошують на новорічну маланку 16 січня о 5 годині вечора в Leisure Dean Banquet Hall. Ціна квитків $140. За квитками дзвоніть за номером 905-624-32-43. Вас розважатимуть гурт «Надія» з Польщі та Софія Федина з України. Українське національне об'єднання в Гамільтоні запрошує на новорічну маланку в суботу, 16 січня о 6 годині вечора за адресою 170 Parkdale Avenue North в Гамільтоні. За квитками по $50 дзвоніть за номером 905-561-06-65. Українські молодіжні ансамблі запрошують вас на різдвяний концерт, що відбудеться в неділю, 17 січня о 3:30 годині пополудні в церкві Успіння Святої Богородиці на 3625 Cuthbert Road, Місісазі. Спортивне товариство «Україна» та танцювальна група «Десна» запрошують вас на Маланку 2016 23 січня о 5:30 годині вечора в приміщенні Renaissance by the Creek на 3045 South Creek Road, Місісазі. На вас чекають призи, смачна харчова обслуга Baby Point кухня та оркестр «Нове покоління». Квитки по $140 замовляйте у спортивному товаристві на 75 Six Point Road, Торонто або за телефоном 416 893 64 75. Чоловічий клуб при церкві Святого Йосифа в Оквілі запрошує вас на Маланку 2016 в суботу, 23 січня о 6 годині вечора. Адреса банкетного залу 300 River Oaks Boulevard East в Оквілі. За квитками телефонуйте за номером 289 430 61 75. Українське національне об'єднання Канади запрошує вас на Маланку, що відбудеться 23 січня. Квитки по $125 можна замовити за телефоном 647 686 8895. Адреса 145 Evans Avenue в Торонто. Початок о 7 годині вечора.
Христос рождається. В імені SIR Group бажаю всім веселих свят, щасливого Нового року, щастя, здоров'я і успіхів для вас всіх, ваших родин, ваших дітей, ваших знайомих. І ще раз, Христос рождається.
Громадські оголошення «Що коли іде» спонсоровані Cardinal Funeral Homes Limited.
Шановна українська громада, шановні друзі Канадсько-Української торгової палати. Від імені Канадсько-Української торгової палати я хочу побажати вам всього найкращого, щастя, здоров'я, з святами. Найважніше хочу побажати Україні, щоб там була справді нарешті мир, був мир, злагода і порядок. І ми всі чекаємо разом з вами в Україні, що таке буде дуже скоро, і будемо разом співпрацювати і збудуємо велику, могутню, веселу Україну. Від імені Канадської української торгової палати Христос рождається!
От і закінчилася наша сьогоднішня передача. Дякуємо, що ви провели цю годину разом з нами. Наступного тижня наша новорічна програма. Прощаюся з вами до наступного тижня. Всім веселих свят. Я ваша ведуча Марта Чурлович. Вітаємо вас, дорогі глядачі, на українській телемережі Альберта Контакт. Я ваша ведуча Марта CZURYLOWICZ. Вітаємо зі святами всіх, що святкують за новим календарем. Сьогодні продовжуємо уривки з міжнародної конференції в Едмонтоні під назвою Contested Ground і пропонуємо вашій увазі частину доповіді доктора Валерія Кучинського з Columbia University, в якій він розповідає про роль України в Об'єднаних Націях в часи Радянського Союзу і сьогодні. Далі пропонуємо вашій увазі знайомство з українською мисткинею, майстринею аквалерії, ілюстратором дитячих видань, роботи, які є у колекціях шанувальників мистецтва в Канаді, Південній Америці, Австралії, Європі, Ларисою Цимбалюк-Челадин. Сьогодні продовжуємо уривки з міжнародної конференції в Едмонтоні під назвою Contested Ground і пропонуємо вашій увазі частину доповіді доктора Валерія Кучинського з Columbia University, в якій він розповідає про роль України в Об'єднаних Націях в часи Радянського Союзу і сьогодні.
The UN was not created to take mankind to heaven, but to save humanity from hell. These words of Dag Hammarskjöld have come to serve as a mission statement of sorts. For all its shortcomings, the UN can look back on much of the past 70 years with pride. Indeed, it has passed the test of time. The Cold War never turned hot, though there were Cold War proxies, conflicts in Korea, Vietnam, Nicaragua, Angola, Afghanistan, and now war is going on in Ukraine. Secretary General Ban Ki-moon told a recent news conference, that he was conscious of all the criticism about the UN effectiveness, accountability, and its relevance. Were there no United Nations, however, where countries could sit down to discuss the major issues of the day? I'm afraid to tell you that the world might have been bloodier, much more tragic, Ban said. Now a few words about Ukraine's participation in the work of the organization. From the moment the UN came to the existence till the declaration of Ukraine's independence, the organization had been a major forum through which the world community received information on the history, culture, identity of Ukrainian people, and could see Ukraine as a separate entity. The powerful Ukrainian communities overseas, especially in the US, Canada, UK, and Latin America, have also played a unique role in fostering the Ukrainian cause. During the Soviet times, despite severe limitations, Ukraine did participate in foreign relations and maintained various international ties. But it lacked the most important prerequisite of a sovereign state, that of a genuine foreign policy. Kiev's foreign policy course was made in Moscow. Still, in contrast to other former Soviet republics, Ukraine, as a member of the United Nations, managed to gain through all these years, through 45 years, managed to gain priceless experience and to create its own highly professional diplomatic corps. Unfortunately, this turbulent period of Ukraine's diplomatic history has never been properly recorded and analyzed. There were outstanding diplomats, real patriots of their motherlands. I'll give you a few names: Georgy Shevil, a former Minister of Foreign Affairs, Gennady Udovenko, Anatoly Zlenko, Boris Tarasyuk, Volodymyr Khandogiev, Volodymyr Ogrysko, to name just a few. Through the years, Ukraine has been elected on many occasions to various working and governing bodies of the UN and the specialized agencies. Its representatives served in the high posts in the UN hierarchy: President of the Security Council, President of the General Assembly, President of the UNDP-UNFPA Governing Council, and Chairman of all main committees of the General Assembly. In 48, 49, 84, 85, Ukraine served as a non-permanent member of the UN Security Council. For the third time, Ukraine became Council's member in 2000, 2001 as an independent and sovereign state. A new stage of Ukraine's participation on international arena opened up on 24 August 91 after the country regained its independence. In September 91, during the General Assembly, for the first time in 45 years of membership in the UN, Ukrainian delegation took part at the General Assembly, guided by purely national interests of the country. Immediately after regaining its independence, Ukraine activities at the UN, specifically its participation in peacekeeping operations, contributed not only to fostering its positive image in international arena, but also to strengthening the organization as such. A few figures: since 92, some 35,000 Ukrainian citizens have participated in 20 peacekeeping operations around the globe. Ukraine has put forward scores of important diplomatic initiatives, specifically on establishing the International Day of Peacekeepers on 29 May, on holding the special session of the UN General Assembly on the fight against HIV/AIDS, a special session, and adopting Security Council special resolution on women's rights, and many others. In 1997, Gennady Udovenko, Ukraine's foreign minister, was elected president of the 52nd session of the UN General Assembly. The session came into history as the Forum for Reforms, a comprehensive radical reform program initiated by Secretary General was adopted and immediately started to be implemented. When in March 2014, the Russian Federation annexed Crimea and started to unleash a bloody conflict in Donbass, the General Assembly adopted Resolution 68-262. It was no surprise that the Ukrainian President Petro Poroshenko, speaking at this current session of the General Assembly, made particular mention of the issue of UN reform for the gradual limitation of the veto right with its further cancellation. Poroshenko told the General Assembly, and I quote, "In every democratic country, if someone has stolen your property, an independent court will restore justice in order to protect your rights and punish the offender. However, we must recognize that in the 21st century, our organization lacks an effective instrument to bring to justice an aggressor country that has stolen the territory of another sovereign state." Ukraine's forthcoming membership in the UN Security Council opens up new additional opportunities to contribute not only to strengthening world peace and security, but also to revitalize and reforming this august body. Thank you very much.
Далі пропонуємо вашій увазі знайомство з українською мисткинею, майстринею аквалерії, ілюстратором дитячих видань, роботи, які є у колекціях шанувальників мистецтва в Канаді, Південній Америці, Австралії, Європі, Ларисою Цимбалюк-Челадин.
We understand that you're one of not just a prolific artist, but you actually are a professional one and you make a living doing that. So tell us, how did you get started? How did all this begin?
It's in the genes. My Baba, Elizabeth Cimbaluk, she was a prolific artist in her own right. She designed her own pesanquet. I grew up seeing her design her own weavings, her own embroidery. My dad is a graphic artist, and people across Canada would know him as the designer of the biggest pesanquet in the world, which just celebrated its 40th anniversary. So I had him as a mentor, and it just seemed natural out of high school to go directly into the fine arts program at the U of A. So I studied at the U of A. I have my BFA, Bachelor of Fine Arts. It was all in abstract art, which nobody would believe now. And from there, I had to prove to my dad, because he said, well, now you have to become a teacher to make money. I go, no, I think I can make it as an artist. And I illustrated children's books for almost 15 years. People would know me across Canada for the Kaska production series. I did Oystros Tozashum, Visnioka, Snihova Pisnia. There were a couple of others. I worked with Jean Swazdatsky and Lena Gullitzin, and I started that when I was 19. And those experiences with professionals like Jean encouraged me to continue on. I can make it as an artist. And I've never looked back. There have been commissions come my way, both from the Ukrainian community, and in 2008, I was the feature artist for the International Leonard Cohen Festival. So it has just come because it's meant to be.
You mentioned you went to university,
Yeah.
but you also said that you started being an artist when you were 19, or even possibly
Oh,
earlier.
before that. My first canvas was
That's
a
what I want to
pesanka.
hear. That's what I want to hear.
My first canvas was a pesanka. I was 3 years old, and I remember Baba was doing demonstrations on how to write pesanka, and I would be beside her, and I would draw on the pesanka and got that three-dimensional feel, and took weaving lessons and embroidery lessons from her, so I sort of got the sense of color, sense of composition. Working beside my dad, watching him design things for the provincial government, he worked as the graphic artist for the Ukrainian Village, for Head Smashed In Buffalo Jump. All those experiences as a child just molded me. I have no fear now of trying something.
No, you mentioned something very interesting, and we all talk about education, and the question here is formal education as opposed to the kind of education that you had at home. What helped form you more, or what was the benefit of each?
Both beneficial. I appreciate people would say that someone's gifted. I've run across many students when I teach in the schools as artist in residence. I can see that someone's got a feel for it and may not even need formal training. But in addition to being exposure as a child to different things, going to university or to a college makes you aware of what's happening in the real world internationally as far as art goes, how you would fit in, how you would survive as an artist, how you learn who was Leonardo da Vinci really, or Rembrandt, all these names that when you get to be older, like myself, I'm in my 50s now, I appreciate having had that formal knowledge as well. So the mix, you need it. If you're a parent, I would introduce your children to the arts right now, because I know scientists that art has helped them growing up with it. So you need the balance.
We call you a Canadian artist because you're here in Canada, and yet we look at your art, and it has that never mind dash. It has that power or essence of Ukrainian.
Yes.
So how do you?
I would have to say that I'm definitely Ukrainian Canadian. I'm third generation here. My influences have come from living in a multicultural community amongst Aboriginals, Italians, Germans. The States has been a big influence as a child. All the cartoons that you see on TV, Bugs Bunny, Flintstones, that sort of thing, have influenced my work. And yet, I've thought about it myself. Where does that power come from my roots, that dusha? Like, it's there from somewhere. I wasn't much of a Ukrainian dancer, and yet I have many images that are inspired by Ukrainian dance. I find I'm inspired by Ukrainian music a lot. By Ukrainian dance, by the movement that we've done, by food, but you know, by camaraderie inspires me a lot, which is part of our culture. So that I'm Ukrainian Canadian, big U Ukrainian, big C Canadian. Yeah.
So Larissa, how does the creative process work? Do you, when you start, when this is blank,
yes,
do you know that this is going to have these three panels? Do you know this is going to be about the clothes hanger? What do you know before you get into doing this?
Quite often, especially with the Ukrainian theme paintings, I have been commissioned to do them, and I do a lot of research beforehand. This particular piece that's here with me today for the interview is called From Dawn Until Dusk. And I was thinking as I was researching about Ukrainian pioneer women and the fact that they had to work from dawn until dusk. My baba, actually my pra-baba, probably slept 3 hours a night, did laundry every day, and to enable her children, her grandchildren, and me, my great-grandchild, and I have children, to be able to make it here in Canada. So that was the idea, laundry from dawn until dusk. I then drew it out. I then wanted to get the feel of air, because the laundry's blowing in the air. So this particular piece ended up being a triptych, something Ukrainians always do, put everything in threes. And so I cut the paper first and drew into it. And I usually do my background first, because it sets the stage. It is the setting. I get a feel. Is it going to be a nighttime scene, daytime scene? I do my background first, and then from there I work the painting up to the very small details. So in this case, I'm sure this piece is a few years old, but I'm sure I did the vyshytya and on the chustka last. So that's how I work those kind of things. I have another painting here, which is totally different. It's new, and it is done with a poured paint technique. And it's something I found on YouTube, but it's almost identical to doing a pesenka. You draw some simple ideas or lines on a piece of paper. It's white paper. I then poured yellow on the whole paper, and with this stuff, on a pesenka you would use wax. I used what's called blockout, and I blocked out parts of the poppies. Then I poured red over top of the whole paper and blocked out what I wanted to keep red. Then I poured some green at the bottom, blocked out what I wanted to keep green, and a little bit of other dark stuff, blocked it out. When it was done, you take off all the block out, just like you take the wax off a pesenka. The advantage I have, though, is I can go back into it afterwards, and I put these little krapeczki here, the details on top of all that. And because I knew, well, like earlier I said my first canvas was a pesenka, it was intuitive. The process I didn't have to think about. I was already creating with that batik pesenka process. And it's so loose, some people don't recognize that's the same artist, but I'm having so much fun. I'm reverting back in my roots and applying it to something new now. So it's two different styles. I like experimenting. So that's sort of the process here that I go through. In 2008, I had the opportunity to work with dancers and Leonard Cohen's music and draw to that and create artwork. So it was a multimedia presentation. And I enjoyed that process. That was several years ago, almost 8 years ago now. I'm doing it again but this time with John Stetch. And I get to draw from my roots. Both John and I are very excited. We have collaborated with Marcia Ostaszewski, who's at Cape Breton University. She has a collection of immigrant songs that were collected back in the 1960s by Klimash and later Professor Hodnitkevich and Medvitsky helped. So there's this collection of immigrant songs that we're taking those melodies. John is going to, I don't know the terminology, riff on them, whatever those jazz musicians do. He's going to work with the melodies and create something. I am going to draw to his music. Whatever John comes up with will be my inspiration. I'm familiar with the content. It's in my veins, the immigrant songs, and the two of us are hoping to come up with something by the end of next year, by the end of 2016. So it falls right in line with the 125th anniversary. Not that we intentionally did that, but the collaboration. I love doing that with young artists, old artists, just working together to make new statements, to share our culture and our roots.
Громадські оголошення «Що коли іде» спонсоровані Cardinal Funeral Homes Limited. Українські вісті, Canada's bi-weekly Ukrainian news. Subscribe today. Call 780-488-3693 for 3 free trial issues.
Український танцювальний ансамбль «Шумка» в Едмонтоні запрошує вас на різдвяний виступ Claire's Dream. Показ відбудеться 29 та 30 грудня в Jubilee Auditorium в Едмонтоні. За квитками дзвоніть за номером 1-855-985-5000 або завітайте на вебсайт shumka.com.
Альбертська рада українського мистецтва запрошує всіх на класи кулінарії. За інформацією телефонуйте 780-488-8558. Святвечір to go. Традиційні страви на святвечір для 12 осіб або більше можете замовляти у Максим Закордонський по телефону 780-455-9559. Частина доходу із святвечір to go буде передана на танцювальний ансамбль «Шумка».
Альбертська рада українського мистецтва заохочує всіх артистів та художників представляти свої роботи у нововідкритій галереї. За подальшу інформацію звертайтеся за номером телефону 780-488-85-58 або за електронною адресою info@acuarts.ca. Спілка української молоді в Едмонтоні запрошує вас на Маланку 2016, що відбудеться 23 січня в Ukrainian Youth Unity Complex на 9615 153 Авеню в Едмонтоні. За квитками по $75. Дзвоніть за номером 780-242-98-82. Або заходьте на веб-сторінку malanka.ca.
Ось закінчилася наша сьогоднішня передача. Дякуємо, що ви провели цю годину разом з нами. На другий тиждень пропонуємо вашій увазі знайомство із мисткинею Любою Білаш і її цікаві різноманітні вироби біжутерії. Прощаюся з вами до наступного тижня. Вітаємо зі святами. Я ваша ведуча Марта Чурлович.